Sure, what's up?
My dad has gotten done reading this book called Crash Proof. I don't know if you're familiar with it, by Peter Schiff.
By who?
Peter Schiff?
No.
No. It's one that they've been talking about on talk radio a lot. Anyway, this guy has got my dad convinced that the stock market crash is imminent.
I'll try to be nice.
Okay.
I think it's absolutely ludicrous.
Okay.
Absolutely ludicrous. But there is no indication sufficient out there for this kook's kid, who's probably a kook too, to say this. The market is probably 100 times more sophisticated and complicated now than it was in 1929. So this man is, these people that predict these things, they really honestly are typically very uneducated, and they're doomsayers. I don't own any gold. I'm not going to buy any gold. It's a dumb idea. I have all of the money that I own tied up in bank accounts at banks, guaranteed by the FDIC, invested in good growth stock mutual funds in the stock market, and in paid for real estate. And I am not moving a dime because of an idiot like Peter Schiff.
When that conversation was recorded, the Dow was over 13,000 when that radio show. But obviously, look, I listened to it at the time, and I heard about it because some people told me that Dave Ramsey had commented about me, and I actually reached out to Dave Ramsey's people after that was out to see if he wanted to have me on his program or to learn a little bit more about what I was saying and not just dismiss me as some kind of kook, which he did. And of course, I got nowhere with Dave Ramsey's people. Now that it's 2010, it's 2 years after that interview, you can see how completely absurd his statements were. That's the way the typical person thinks. I mean, he holds himself off to be an expert, but clearly that's not the case. I mean, first of all, the person who called in, it was a woman whose father had read my book, Crash Proof, and after reading my book, he wanted to sell his stocks and buy gold. Now, that wasn't the only advice in my book. I had a chapter on gold. Now, at the time, I think gold was still under $800 an ounce, and the Dow was over 13,000. Obviously, the Dow today is 10,000 and gold is 1,100. Clearly, he would have been much better off doing exactly what he wanted to do, but Dave Ramsey told his daughter that he would be an idiot to do that only idiots bought gold, that it was a stupid investment, and clearly he was wrong.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
I do believe that it's very important that we continue this discussion about the economy, because the information that I have brought to you this past few videos or this past few podcasts is very important because it shows you at every level how we are seeing the foundation of the economy crumble. Okay, first we started with how food is being affected by all of this, and it's starting to go up, right? And it's not just the money; it's also the lack of goods that is being exported from other countries, and China is buying a bunch of it. So that's creating a scarcity for other countries, right? So that means that the prices are actually going up. And now that you have this monetary policy that is going to affect us in the future, which is going to create hyperinflation, those prices are going to go even higher, and the scarcity is going to go even lower, right? We're gonna have less because a lot of countries are going to try to get their hands on whatever they can. And then we moved on to how the population is being affected, talking about doing a UBI. And at first, what the cities around the country, what they're trying to do first is raise the funds, look at the program, see if it works, and if it works, they're going to implement it. But it's only going to work if they can raise money instead of printing it. Because if they just have to print money, it's going to be even worse. The debt is going to go up even faster, and it's just going to be a bigger disaster for everyone. So that is the criteria for them to fulfill if they want the UBI to work. And then I shifted to how everything is working behind the scenes pretty much, with the government, with the central banks, all throughout the world. We talked about how we are printing ourselves into oblivion. And of course, we have been doing that for a while now. But when you look at the debt of the United States, in 2021, As I showed you, it was 27.8 something. That was not including the stimulus package that they passed. And what we did is that we looked at the time machine within that U.S. debt clock to 2025, right? And it showed us that we were going to be at $50 trillion in debt just in 4 years. That is not including all the programs that the Biden administration wants to do, all the stimulus that they want to pass, all the Green New Deals and all of this other spending that's already being planned. That's not including that. So really, in 4 years, it could be a greater number than $50 trillion. So now we are asking ourselves, when is all of this going to implode? When is the economy going to hyperinflate? When is the currency going to be worthless and we're gonna be reduced to barter and trade and using gold and silver, right? Because there's a lot of voices out there, especially voices that are very respected, who are either A, strongly against gold, or B, strongly for it, right? And that is the reason why I want to start this video with that video of Peter Schiff and Dave Ramsey. They are both very well-respected persons, in the financial industry. Of course, Peter Schiff is known for his love of gold. He trades gold and all of that. He manages accounts in gold and other things. And he is very popular, with podcasts. We go in on mainstream media and talking about that, talking about the economy and things like that. And Dave Ramsey, he's very well known for his program about helping people, staying out of debt, not going into debt and having credit card debt, because that is pretty much what is sinking a lot of folks. And really what he's teaching is for people to just get away from debt, have everything paid for. If you don't have the money, then you don't get credit for it, and just build onto your wealth for when you retire. His slogan is pretty much, you have to live like no one else right now, so later on you can give like no one else. So both of them are very respected persons. And the reason that I want to bring them up is because you have two wealthy people talking about gold and silver. Okay, and of course, now I'm bringing myself into the equation, and I want to talk about it as a prepper. Who's going to win? Do I side with Peter Schiff and say, yes, buy gold and silver? Or am I going to side with Dave Ramsey and say, you know what, gold and silver is just a waste of time? So that is what I want to address in this video. So before I continue any further, I do want to remind you that my name is Jose Prado. This is the ManMadeSurvival Show, and I would really appreciate it if you can, subscribe to the channel, share this information with your friends and family, because this one is one of the very important videos that we have to make. And if you don't share it with people, then they're not going to know, and they're not going to know how to prepare. So this is exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, I do have a disclaimer, though. I'm going to be sharing a lot of numbers and charts, so hopefully this doesn't get boring quick. But I do encourage you to stay all the way to the end, because once you see the numbers and the charts, you're really going to have your mouth drop to the floor. All right, so stay all the way to the end, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave comments and all of that, whichever social media you may be listening to this through. I also want to remind you that I'm giving a book away for free. It's Preppers Secrete Cache. You can go to the front page of the ManMadeSurvivalStore.com. You can click the link. It'll take you to the site where you just fill out your information and we send you the book absolutely free. But I do want to let you know that all you pay is for shipping. The book retails for $24.99 plus shipping. But we're taking away the price of the book, and all you're doing is paying for the shipping, which is $9.99. So you are, in fact, getting it for free. So I would really appreciate it if you can get it, read through it, and pass it along with friends and family so they can also get prepared, see why they need to prepare, and they'll see the things that's going on right now that I've wrote in the book. So let's go ahead and get into this podcast, because this is going to be one of the most important podcasts that I've done, for the simple fact that we have to talk about precious metals. And as I'm going to explain here in a second, precious metals will play a role here in the future. Now, I do have a video where Peter Schiff talks about gold and to the degree that he's talking about it. And then I have another video of Dave Ramsey talking about it as well, and how he addresses the issue. I don't want to talk about it too much because I want you to listen, out of their mouth. But I will come back and tell you how I see that as a prepper. All right, so first we're going to start with Dave Ramsey. Here it is.
I don't know Ray, and I don't know what his teachings are, but I don't buy gold, and I don't recommend people buy gold. And we can talk through why. Let's pretend for a second that hyperinflation occurred. Okay, that your worst fears with your scenario occur. Okay, and we go back to the Carter administration, and we had 10 and 12% inflation a year, which we haven't really seen since then. But let's say that happens due to the oversupply of money and these $3 trillion bailouts, and that's what you're worried about. And I agree with you that what they've been doing up there is unwise, for sure. I don't think it's going to take us to the same place you think it's going to take us to, but let's just pretend it did, that it takes us to a real heavy inflation rate. There is no promise that gold follows that on an inverse relationship, meaning there is no promise that the value of gold goes up as the value of the dollar goes down, because they are not tied together in any way. There is no index. We do not operate on the gold standard anymore. And so gold goes up like all commodities: oil, gold, silver, agricultural products like wheat. These are all, they go up based on a perceived shortage, or they go down based on a perceived oversupply, because they have an emotional attachment to gold that they don't have to the other commodities, that makes them think that gold is a safe place. It is not. It's not safe. It is a golden colored rock. It has no intrinsic value except the fact that two different people are fighting over it. And that's the only thing that gives it value. The same exact thing that gives a green piece of paper with the president's face on it value. It has no intrinsic value. It's a green piece of paper. The only reason it has value is that people want it from one another and will accept it from one another. That's the only thing that gives it value. And the trust that I can train a green piece of paper or a bar of gold or a golden cufflink or something for something else, then that's what makes it valuable. And so in the event that that an economy collapses, we do not automatically rush out with bars of gold to the quick sack and fill up our car. It's not how it works. The first thing that happens in a completely collapsed economy is it returns to a barter economy. And I can show you examples of that. Take, for instance, New Orleans after Katrina. That is a microcosm, a small economy. It completely collapsed. And there was a period of weeks that you really couldn't trade a bar of gold for anything but a pair of blue jeans or a can of gasoline. You could trade, or bottled water. You could trade for almost anything. And it became just basically a barter, oftentimes a black market barter economy. And that's the first thing that happens when an economy collapses. People don't return to gold. They don't go to their safe and get out diamonds. They go to their safe and get out bullets.
All right, so Dave Ramsey, like I said, he's well known, he's well respected, and I do agree with what he said to a degree. All right, because there's two different things that Dave Ramsey, I don't think he understands very well as a prepper would. Okay, all right. So he talked about in the video that you wouldn't just, if there's an economic collapse, you wouldn't just grab your gold, go down to the gas station, and and then pump your your car full of gas. He is correct in that we are not set up as a community, as citizens, to be able to purchase and trade in gold, back and forth, because for one, not very many people have gold and silver. And even if we did, the gas stations and the stores and stuff like that, at least not yet, they're not set up to where they can accept and trade gold and silver back and forth, right? Because they would need different denominations. They would need smaller pieces of gold and silver, and and just go up, kind of like the dollar bills. You start with your pennies, nickels, dimes, and then you go all the way to $100 bills. It would have to be something like that with gold and silver, but we're not set up for that right now. However, when we're talking about trading between people, you're gonna be able to tell who's the prepper, who prepared for all of this, and who didn't, for the simple fact of who's gonna be trading gold and silver. All right, if you're a prepper and you happen to run up into another prepper, you know that both of you have everything you need, or pretty close to it, depending on how you prepared. If you follow the way that I did, you're gonna have everything you need, and you're gonna be able to accept gold and silver for you to trade with another person. Okay, so that's how that is going to be. That's how you're going to be able to tell who prepared and who didn't. So it's very important that we pay attention to this. Now, if you trade with someone silver, you give them silver, you give them gold, and they give you the goods, that means that they have everything that they need, right? And then you go along, and then if you have to trade with somebody else who didn't prepare, instead of trading back in silver and gold back and forth, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trading the goods that you have in front of you, right? Even the clothes off your back if necessary, because they don't have silver, they don't have gold, they don't have everything they need. You don't have gold, silver, or everything you need. That is the reason why you're trading. All right, so now that I said that, I want to go ahead and move on to the Peter Schiff video. I'm going to comment on it, and then I'm going to wrap them both together. All right, here it is.
But then when COVID came, then, we went straight to zero. The Fed, didn't pass go, went right to zero on interest rates. And QE4 is now already bigger than 1, 2, and 3 combined. And we're just getting started, right? This is QE infinity. The Fed is now saying it's not even thinking about raising interest rates. So there is no way anybody in the world is going to believe the Fed if it even tries to bluff that it's going to raise rates one day or that it's going to shrink its balance sheet. So that is what saved the dollar and put a short-term top on gold. Well, we've now built a huge bottom in gold over the last decade, and we're about to explode higher. And the dollar is about to get killed, not only against gold, but against all the other world's fiat currencies. And there's nothing that's going to stop it. So what's about to happen is the world is going to reject the dollar standard and go back to the gold standard. That's where we're headed. Gold beats all these fiat currencies hands down. And so gold was the reserve before the dollar, and it will be the reserve after the dollar. That's the only monetary system that works, right? It imposes discipline on governments, keeps them honest, prevents asset bubbles, and it facilitates trade because you have stability in exchange rates. So that's where we're going. So how do we get back to a gold standard from a dollar standard? Well, central banks need to buy a lot more gold. That's what's going to happen. And the price of gold is going to have to go a lot higher. That's it. You can't go back on a gold standard with $2,000 gold. Maybe $20,000 gold, but not $2,000 gold. Now, you could go on a gold standard with $20,000 gold if you let the price of everything else go down by 90%, but that's probably not going to happen. I mean, the political realities to have that kind of deflation is just not going to happen. So rather than collapsing the price of everything else, they just let the price of gold go up. And that's what happens. So if you get all these central banks that have very little gold that now have to come in and buy gold, the price goes up. Now they don't have to buy as much because the price is higher. And now the value of their gold reserves goes up. But it's not just going to be central banks that are going to be buying gold. Gold is going to be bought by institutions, pension funds, endowments. Everybody is going to have an allocation to gold in their portfolios.
All right, so Peter Schiff, what he's talking about is the government level. What is going to happen with the Fed? What's going to happen with currencies around the world? All right, pretty much what he's saying is that they're going to collapse and they're going to be looking for gold and silver for them to be able to back up a new currency. And that is kind of what Dave Ramsey said, but without the gold being the equation. You know, he did say that even if there's a collapse, there would be another another government to come in. And then they're going to issue new currency, and then pretty much we'll go back to normal. Now, Dave Ramsey, he's looking at it through the citizen perspective, but not in the government level. Peter Schiff focuses only on the government level. All right, and even though he does talk to people to get it, because that's how they're going to save their wealth, it doesn't really address how we're going to be able to trade it back and forth. Now, this is where I come in as a prepper. All right, yes, Dave Ramsey, right? We are going to trade back and forth. Only people who have everything that they need, people who are preppers, they're going to accept gold and silver if they have everything that they need, and you know, if it's convenient to them. But that is not the only reason you want gold and silver. When the new government or the government comes out with a new currency that is going to be backed up by gold and silver or something like that, you can trade your gold and silver with them in order for you to get that currency. All right, so let's say it's like monopoly money. When you first start, They spread the money out so everybody can have a certain amount of money, and then they can get the economy going. If you got gold and silver, you're going to be able to trade with them to get even more money, and they're going to want to do that because they're going to have to back up the new currency with gold and silver. And that's pretty much what Peter Schiff said. They're going to have to back it up with something, even if it's digital. Even if it's digital numbers on your credit card, on the computer, whatever it is, they're going to have to back it by something. And more than likely, it's going to be gold and silver, like he mentioned, right? So that's pretty much it. Now, I want to move on real quick to how much each of them is worth, because we are having two rich people here talking about gold and silver, and they have the ability to just get up and go to another country if things get very dicey here. We don't, all right? Or at least I don't. I don't have the ability to just get up and migrate somewhere else and just, start a new life. I could do it. I've done it before when I was little, but now as an adult, if I have to take my kids to another country, if I have to, I would. I've already experienced it and I know how it is. But if I have to stay here, or if I cannot go anywhere because, there's flight restrictions, or, you cannot cross the border because everybody's afraid of coronavirus, whatever the case may be, and you have to stay here and suffer through it, then you're going to have to make sure that you have everything in place for you to be able to withstand whatever that is. All right. So first I want to start with Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's net worth is $475 million, and that's as of 2021. And for Peter Schiff's net worth is $70 million. All right. So yes, Dave Ramsey has a lot more money than Peter Schiff does, but they're both millionaires. Anything happens, they just go to the next country where they think they're going to be safe, and they're just going to trade in that currency. They're going to trade all their dollars for that currency, let's just say euros, and then they're going to have a millionaire's life. That's of course given that if the other side of the world didn't also collapse, which of course, as I've shown you here in the past, it looks like it's going to happen. The currencies all around the world are going to collapse except for China's. But anyway, so hyperinflation is something that we have to really worry about, as citizens, because we don't have the buying power that Peter Schiff and Dave Ramsey do. All right, so that's why we have to look at how things are going to progress here in the next few months, the next few years, with all the money spending that the Biden administration is planning on doing, on top of everything that Trump spent, Obama spent, and everybody else before them. So how did it happen in history? All right, so we have to really understand that there are examples out there all throughout the world where it has happened before, and the reasons why, and we have to really understand what they did afterwards. Okay, so I have an article here from CNBC.com, and it pretty much what it does is that it shows you the countries, the time period, how much inflation there was, and how long it took for prices to double for several countries. Okay, so I'm just gonna give you the countries. I really do encourage you to go to the site to look up the headline and read through it, because it's going to give you a lot more detail than me just giving you what happened to these countries. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. It's called The Worst Cases of Hyperinflation. Again, that's from CNBC.com. And the first one that they have on here is Greece, October 1944. The highest monthly inflation was 13,800%. Prices doubled every 4.3 days. Germany, October 1923. Highest monthly inflation was 29,500%. Prices doubled every 3.7 days. Yugoslavia, January 1994. Highest monthly inflation is 313 million%, or was. Prices doubled every 1.4 days. Zimbabwe, a very famous one. November 2008. Highest monthly inflation of 79,600,000,000%. Prices doubled every 24.7 hours. Hungary, 1946. Highest monthly inflation was 13,600,000,000,000,000%. Prices doubled every 15.6 hours. All right, and that's all that it shows, and I added Venezuela to this. But before I go to Venezuela, let's understand, okay? It gives you how fast the prices double. Now imagine you sitting back, okay, and you're needing to go to the grocery store. You go in there, you buy your groceries for a very high price already. You go home, the next day you realize that you forgot something, and you go back, and in 24 hours or in 15 hours, however long it was, prices already double. How much will you be freaking out? Not just you, but everybody around you. Everybody would try to buy everything that they could as fast as they could, and we saw it with the pandemic, so it could happen and it will happen. People will freak out very, very fast, and they're going to try to ransack the entire place before prices get too high to where they cannot afford them anymore. That is exactly the type of chaos that we can see here in the United States, and you have to make sure that you have everything you need before that happens, right? It's almost set in stone that that's going to happen to the United States. The only thing that we do not know at this point is when it's going to happen. And if we continue to print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, as you're going to see here in this article that I showed you, hopefully you go and read it, is that what happened with this each and every country is that they all printed money, whether it was for the war effort or whatever the case may be. They just had to print money to pay for expenses, and then that's when hyperinflation shut it up onto the moon. All right. And in the article, it tells you that in some places what they did is, with the coins that they had in those days, they would go and turn them in for the metal that they were that was on them. Like let's say the quarters back in before 1965 that were made of silver. People were turning those in to be refined because they were worth more than the face value of it. So for a lot of countries, their currency was disappearing because the metals that was being represented was worth more than the face value. And that's what could happen here in the United States. But let's go ahead and move on to Venezuela, because this whole podcast is going to focus on Venezuela, because this is the most updated, modern example that we have of hyperinflation. And let me remind you that Venezuela's debt to creditors is only $160 billion. Even though that's a lot of money for you and me, for a country that's not a lot, especially for the United States, because we spend $160 billion in just a few hours. All right, let me remind you, our debt is over $30 trillion once you add this previous stimulus that they passed in December. And then it's going to be even more if Biden gets his way here in the next week and they print another $2 trillion. Okay, so Venezuela's collapse really happened in 2014, but it really depends on which side of the ladder of the economic ladder you were in. Because if you were on the lower rung of the ladder, you felt the repercussions of the hyperinflation way before then. If you're in the rich area, you felt it later on. But if you're middle class, you felt it in 2014. In Venezuela, the highest monthly inflation in 2018 was 1 million %. Then in 2021, it dropped down to 6,500%. Prices doubled every 17.5 days. Okay, and let me just go ahead and tell you about Venezuela for just a second, because I have actually seen videos when I was doing the research for this, when I was trying to find prices to bring to you so you can look at them. I saw videos of other YouTubers who said that they went to Venezuela, right? They wanted to check out to see if it was true what was going on, and of course they ended up saying that it was not true, that it was just propaganda from the U.S. government or from the media, whatever it is. But really, what they did is that they do not understand that in order for you to really experience the economy there, for one, you have to strip yourself from all the dollars that you have. And second, you have to live there for at least a year and try to find a job there, live with their minimum wage, so you can understand what it's like to be there, okay? Because these people, they just went into the grocery stores and they said, oh, hey, look, there's plenty of stuff here. Let me look at it. Oh, it's only $1, right? And then they come out with a buggy full of stuff and they say that it was very cheap. But that's because they're going in there with dollars. When you trade in their currency, when you have to go to work there, and then you go to the grocery store, you're gonna find out that you cannot buy it, right? It's too expensive for you to get. That is the reason why the Venezuelan government give food stamps to their people so they can at least have some to eat. So that is what we have to understand. Now I have a chart here for you, but before I go into the charts, if you're listening to this on the Speaker Podcast, on Apple Podcast, on iHeartRadio, whichever it is, if you just listen to this on audio, I really do encourage you to go ahead and switch and go over to YouTube or any other media that has video and look at the charts, okay? Because it's really going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. But of course, I'm going to be describing it here for you. All right, so the chart that you're seeing in front of you right now is how much $1 is compared to Venezuela's Bolivar, which would be their dollar. $1 is the same amount as $1,820,303.15. $100 equals $182,330,314.94. $10,000 equals $18,203,031,494.14. And finally, $1 million is the equivalent to $1,820,303,149,413.61. All right, so that is why it's important for us to understand that, because if you go from here to Venezuela with, let's say, $1,000 that you may have in the bank, once you live here and you land there, you're an automatic millionaire over there. Okay, and it may seem cheap for you to be there for a while because you're paying in dollars. Okay, but if you suddenly run out of your money and you have to get a job there, and then you have to go to work and go to the grocery store, you're gonna see that you're not gonna be able to buy everything that you could at first. All right, and all your bills are gonna pile up very quickly, and you're gonna find yourself in the pain that over 90% of the Venezuelan people are finding themselves right now. All right, so that is the reason why I wanted to compare all of this to that, or to Venezuela, because it's the most modern that we have, because they started in 2014 officially, and they're still in the economic devastation today in 2021. So it's been about 7 years and they're still in it. For some folks, it's even longer than that.
The Man-Made Survival Show.